Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Charlie Pankey, Sierra Breaking Down Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. We hope the Sierra is within your sights or in your future plans. We're excited to have you here today. Just me today. Again, no guests, so we're continuing to work on that and bring some more people interviews to you. But I did get back from some exciting backpacking in the Eastern Sierra, so I'm going to share some of that today, along with some updates and news from around the Sierra. So once again, thank you for joining us, and we want to thank our sponsors, Visit Carson Valley, who are our sponsors for the year in the podcast, and we continue to bring this content to you. Carson Valley is our home base here in Mendon, and we love doing our adventures and base camp right here. Even though when we stay in town, we got plenty to do as well. So it's one of the great things about living on the Eastern Sierra. So as we get started today, let's do a little breaking news and let's talk about what's going on around the Sierra. If you're joining me today and kind of making plans for the Sierra here in Minden, we just finally got some smoke that rolled in from the fires that have, blown up around the Sierra. The end of July was quite explosive for California fire throughout the Sierra range, throughout the state, and Cal Fire is fighting fires throughout the state in many different locations. The Park Fire is the one that's creating the smoke for us. It is now the sixth largest fire in California's history. Extremely unfortunate event that could have been prevented. Unfortunately, this has been set by an individual who lost control and lost their temper and pushed their burning car into a ditch, or did it purpose. I don't know what the purposes were, but I know he's in arraignment. And this fire has destroyed many homes. Lassen Volcanic National Park is closed. Businesses in Northern California that will only survive because they have good summers are shut down. The economic impact of the area is going to be absolutely devastating for that region there. I think of our friends at St. Bernard's Lodge, who has had to turn away guests in a season where she has to have her guest in place. Had a refrigerator full of food, for example, and had to donate it to a food pantry so it didn't go to waste. Besides the air conditions and health problems, the loss of old growth, beautiful forest. Have you ever been to this section where the Park Fire is burning up towards Lassen? It's just full of old growth, great big timber. Very, very, very reminiscent of some of the things we said during the Dixie Fire a couple years back. This fire is looking to butt up right against that possibly. And there's a lot of evacuations up there. So we're continuing to pray for our friends and people traveling in that area, business owners up there. We hope that the Park Fire is able to control. Right now, we think it's at about 18% containment. Weather's getting hot here again. So we're going to see how the explosive nature of that fire continues through the week. And then there's a couple other fires throughout the range. The other big one being down in the Kernville area, where the Boreal Fire and Long Fire, I don't know if they combined or they're really close together. They call it the SQ Lightning Fire now. It's about 49% contained. Had all kinds of evacuations and actually lost an entire town down there, one of the small historic towns in the Kern Canyon area that was lost. It's unfortunate. But fire season is here and it's taking its toll. We've had a long, hot, dry summer, and you guys all know that. So there are a couple things to note here, a couple really sad notes here, but I just want to make sure I mention them because this kind of summer we're dealing with a little bit, right? We had unfortunate a visitor from Kentucky, 23-year-old college student, drowned in Lake Tahoe this week off Well Beach. Unfortunate thing where the weather turned on him kind of frequently. The waves got real big and, cold water, unprepared, whatever. They just weren't able to save him, so he didn't make it out. So that was really bad. And then we all know about the 20-year-old college student who fell off Half Dome with her dad here in the last couple of weeks after a surprise rainstorm popped up and made the rock slippery, and she just quickly fell, and dad couldn't reach her. This one's really kind of interesting to me that it seems like every year we see, every 1 or 2 years, we see a death at Half Dome. It's extremely dangerous, extremely hard hike, takes a ton of effort from the body. It kind of taxes you out. And we hear stories all the time of slips and falls. When you slip on that, it's gone. And this father now is actually calling for some changes. And when I first heard this, I went, I don't know. Let's don't do that. Let's just grieve and let's move on and let's don't go overboard here because Half Dome is what it is, right? It's been dangerous since the day it became a thing. There's people that still try to climb it without ropes. I mean, it's one of those iconic things that we probably shouldn't be climbing, to be honest with you, but we are. And then now it's a tourist event. Now people are going up, and now these people are athletic. They're in shape. It wasn't like it was me going up there who has no business probably being on it right now, right? Um, so I won't say anything about that. But I watched an interview with him, and all he's kind of calling for is that why can't there be boards every foot on the granite instead of every 10 feet? That sounds really logical, right? Until you start looking at rock structure, maybe too. Every foot could actually make the rock even break apart more, especially what weather and snow and ice and rain up there. So I don't know if there really is a solution, but it'll be interesting to see how the park reacts to this one. The more social media is out there, the more social pressure that's created, all that stuff's available and on the table, and the park will have to react in some way. But as we know, with any adventure that we're doing in the Sierra, we're doing with granite and weather and rock climbing, there's just danger that exists, right? Whether it be rock falling from a face and hitting you in the head, or falling off a rock that moved. Went down a talus that just recently, and the whole boulder right below my feet just moved as soon as I landed on it. So, there's always those opportunities for danger. Half Dome just have to be right there in front of our eyes, and it's so traveled. It seems like it should be a bit preventable a little bit. I've heard people talk about, hey, why isn't there a clip-on system like a Via Ferrata system on Half Dome, which that one actually makes a little bit more sense to me. But then I've heard some people who've done Half Dome quite a bit say that this wouldn't work. I'm not sure exactly why, because I've never done Half Dome myself. So I just wanted to bring that one up. It's we're dealing with news as we travel the Sierra all the time. As we do Sierra Magazine, I hear news, and I don't like to bring all the breaking news to you. There's just too much. Really like to focus on what we like to do, right, and get out, explore, and find more places. But I think it is important that we all kind of aware of what's going on in the communities and what's going on in the mood in the mountains, because the mountains are always changing. They are always kind of out there preventing a challenge. I remember what's the movie from Man from Snowy River back in the day, talking about how the mountains are always trying to kill you, right? So that's kind of true in many ways, especially seasonally. There's always something, whether it be an avalanche or rivers going too high or rocks falling or slippery, whatever it is. It seems to always end in a tragedy, and I always pray that that doesn't happen to the people around me or myself. Obviously, I'd hate to do it with my wife. So anyhow, enough in the news. Let's talk about some fun things in the Sierra Nevada. That's why we're here today, to talk about what's going on. It is Hot August Nights, August 1st here, and August Nights is kicking off in Reno, in Virginia City. We have tourists that'll be flocking to the region for the lake and for the cars and for all the events going on. Right after that will be the motorcycles that will hop in here. So the next few months will be lots of festivals, lots of different events here in the Reno, Tahoe, Carson City region, and we welcome all those guests here. Traffic will be a little bit a little heavier, but the events are fun. My parents are even coming down for the Hot Dogs Nights this year, so we look forward to meeting up with them and enjoying some of the city life as we go. But one of the things I got to do this week is, throughout Sierra Rex history, I've been able to meet people and talk to people in various different industries and people living throughout the state. And one of the gentlemen I met last year, I've met him through a friend a couple years actually ago, but last year I got to meet him in Tahoe, invited me to go backpacking in the Eastern Sierra with a group of his friends. And my friends, my family group goes, "You're going to go backpacking with strangers?" And I go, "Yeah, I trusted the circumstances, sounded good. And it was an opportunity for me to go down to the Bishop area and do some backpacking into an area that I hadn't been on." So we connected up and did that. And so the backpacking trip was in the Bishop Pass corridor. And if you're not familiar with the Bishop Pass corridor, right out of Bishop, the Highway 168 goes two different directions, right? Goes into the Sierra and it ends at Lake Sabrina or South Lake. By the way, I said Sabrina. To me on the map, it says Sabrina. But I was told by a local this week it's called Lake Sabrina. So if you know what the right answer, put the comments down below, because I don't know which one's right. I'm going to say Lake Sabrina because he was a local and said that's what they call it. But it ends at Lake Sabrina, South Lake, North Lake. That's kind of the junction. And all three of those lakes have a trail that heads up into the Eastern Sierra, meets up in the John Muir Wilderness. And so South Lake was the loop that we were going to be on, but they couldn't start until Saturday afternoon. And I am a early morning backpacker. Typically, I like getting out early and getting some distance, and then being at the lake later in the day. So on this day, I thought I'm going to take some opportunity to be a tourist in Bishop a little bit, to understand a little bit of the lifestyle in the Bishop region. And so I went down on Friday night and boondocked in between Mammoth and Bishop. And if you're not familiar with boondocking, it means I didn't stay at a campground. I just took my car up a Forest Service BLM road, found a spot that was wide and clear, and old fire pit there, and made camp out in the desert. No bathrooms, no water. Just it's called boondocking, right? You might call it dispersed camping. That's another term for it. But this is one of the areas from like June Lake to excuse me, to Lone Pine. There is a lot of dispersed camping available in the region. Excuse me, God. So it's a really good place to do that. So found a great little place. It's just you get past Conway Lake there, going down Conway Summit, where it pulled off, and was able to find a great night to stay. Beautiful sunset, great views of the Eastern Sierra, and I highly enjoyed it. It was a great night to be out. Only saw one other set of campers back as it came in late after I had camp set up, so that was really pretty cool to do. For it. But that allowed me to get up early in the morning. It allowed me to get up early and go to sunrise at Lake Sabrina, which I just drove down to Bishop like 15 minutes. And then it's about, I guess, maybe 25-minute drive from where I camped at to get to Lake Sabrina. The lake was a little low. It's a reservoir, Lake Sabrina is, and it looks like it was probably about 10 feet down for July, but there were some boats on the lake already. Beautiful, morning, but it was windy, so it got real choppy water. No great reflection pictures or anything for Lake Sabrina, and so we really enjoyed that. And then what I did is, because I had another half a day, the other thing I hadn't done before was go to the Ancient Bristle Cone Forest, which is Highway 68 the other way out of Bishop. Actually, you got to go down to Big Pine and go up, but it's still Highway 168, which is kind of the road that dissects 395, if you will. And so we took an opportunity to drive back into Bishop, head down to Big Pine. Before I went down, I stopped at Jack's for breakfast. I'm going to shout out to Jack's. They're not sponsoring this video, but Jack's is an old-time local favorite there in Bishop, and I enjoyed breakfast there twice because it's so good. So I highly recommend Jack's if you're stopping in town around breakfast time. Big Pine, and then took the I think it's only like, I want to say it's only like 18 miles from that drive up to the White Mountains and into the Ancient Bristle Cone Pine Forest area where the visitor center is at. So never been on this road before. 168 going up Big Pine's great road. It's going to go skirt the north side of Death Valley. You can actually get to Scotty's Castle back there. There's some different routes in there. So the thing about that north side of Death Valley, but if you're climbing up over the mountain, you got to turn off of that road onto the road that goes up to the visitor center, and it's well signed, very easy to see. And that road is a little bit sketch, man. It's a skinny road with no shoulders, and it climbs and it climbs and it climbs. And I think it goes from 7,000 to 10,000 feet from the highway to the top. So it was a fun drive up. It has some amazing views, man. As you get up there 9,000 feet and you're looking up over these shoulders over the Eastern Sierra and the whole Owens River valleys down below you. What a cool picture, right? That's would make the drive worth it just to do that and stop and take a picture. But the Ancient Bristle Cone Pine Forest, what a cool area. I've never been there. If you don't know these trees, they're the oldest things on Earth, apparently. They've been around for well over 4,000 years, these trees. You learn things up there. They get signs all over the place, like wasn't their natural home. These like maybe glacial or bird or something transported these trees here, and they were discovered. But cool trees. They have a really neat needle thing, really like a really long stem needle with really short pine needles, pine cones. And I always thought they were all that old wizard, tree looking things, and they weren't. They were kind of a mix of both in the forest, which was really quite cool. and I really enjoyed my experience. I only got to be there for a couple hours, but I got the Discovery Trail down, which is the most kind of common trail to see some of these old trees. And then, this is really bad, TV, but that's the old wizard. That's kind of trees we're talking about, ancient bristle cone. So this is the tree format they have out there. But as you walk through the forest and stuff, many of the trees have pine needles and are still alive type thing. So it's hard to show you on those, but which I thought was cool. But I did that, and then I did part of another trail that took me over this overlook over Death Valley, and it was really beautiful. It was well worth a visit. I didn't get to go back to the second grove. I went to the Schulman Grove, which is the guy who discovered it, and then there's another. I want to say it's called the Patriot or Yeah. Anyways, there's another grove about 12 miles back on dirt road, but I didn't have time because we're going backpacking. So headed back down to Bishop to meet these guys, and right across from Shots there, we just met at the park and Carl's Jr. and got ready to go. So let's talk about backpacking. Okay, backpacking is such a good season. If you are familiar with our channel, we talk about backpacking quite a bit, obviously, but we just got back from Silman Pass and in June, so that was a great experience to be on Kings Canyon. And I was kind of fun to know that Bishop Pass was kind of just on the east side of that. So if I was able to go backcountry and get to the JMT and cross over, I could get pretty close to the same area that we were at in the Sierra Range. So kind of down there. And the first thing I noticed heading into backpack with strangers, right? I'm going to just call them strangers. I had never really spent time with them. Is that I'm used to being in charge of it all. I'm used to have asked everybody what they're bringing, and it was kind of cool to see three different guys that backpack quite a bit. What they pack. They had these little rituals, like they weighed themselves before they went out, which I'd never done before, which was pretty cool. I guess I took a 40-pound bag this time. I was like, ooh, so overpacked for a 3-day trip. But I had to carry a 2-man tent instead of a 1-man tent because I didn't know. I forgot poles for the 1-man tent, and I usually hammock camp, but I wasn't sure about trees. So I had all these little things that were so unique and different. But as we arrived at the trailhead at South Lake, it was full. So we also had to wait for some people to leave to find parking space. So we had to walk an extra mile and a half. But late Saturday afternoon, we did get up there and did find parking. Got backed up and took off about 3:30 in the afternoon. And the one thing this trail really caught my attention is that it's well used. So it was a really super, I'm going to say, easy as far as well constructed trail. I mean, there was no real stumbling blocks along the way. There's no rock in the trail that's causing a lot of hard steps. It was just kind of this constant gradual climb for 3 miles as we got up towards Long Lake. And we were doing the Chocolate Lake Loop, which is usually just a day trip. There's a lot of day fishermen, day hikers that do this loop, but they do have 6 permits for backpacking each day. And so our party of 4 had those, and as you get just before you get to Long Lake, there's a cutoff that goes to Chocolate Lakes, and this entire trip up's really nice. It goes through an aspen forest. It goes through a big old pine forest that's mixed up with some meadows. There's wildflowers right now like crazy up there. So there's lots of wildflowers. So it's a beautiful trip. At one point, you have to climb up through this piece of granite, and that's only really kind of switchbacks. It was some major switchbacks right there, but really easy steps. So overall, besides elevation, where you're going up over 10,000 feet in these lakes, besides elevation, the trail itself I thought was really quite easy and well maintained. So when we got to the cutoff, you can go Long Lake and go to the right, which goes up to Bishop Pass, or you can turn left and go into Bull Lake and the Chocolate Lake, so which is where we were heading for the weekend. Bull Lake is the first lake you come to. It's like real fast. It's less than a quarter mile from the trailhead. It's actually a really pretty lake. It's a great fishing lake. Got Chocolate Peak, which is literally looks like a chocolate sundae, sitting right behind the lake. Clear Lake. I went swimming. It's a great swim. And the guys were when we first got there, they go, well, we were going to go to Chocolate Lakes, but we were told by the rangers that campsites are a little bit hard to find the further you go up. And it was getting late. So I did a little scouting around the lake, and then we decided, hey, let's just camp here at Bull Lake, and we'll do the loop the next day. So this is what we did. We found a camp spot kind of towards the beginning of Bull Lake, and had a great evening. The stars were absolutely incredible. I didn't realize the Milky Way was so prevalent right now. There's no light pollution up there, so it has to be one of the prettiest star nights I've seen in the Sierra in my 17 years. There were so many beautiful stars out. It was so clear, which was really kind of funny because that fire that's down in Kernville, the smoke was all the way up into Lone Pine, but it was like a wall at Lone Pine, and none of our Bishop Pass area we had smoke. So we had this beautiful skyline to watch. Next morning when we got up, we were the only ones there that night. But within, I'd say, an hour of us waking up in the morning, so 6:30, 7 o'clock, there were hordes of people showing up with their fishing poles at Bull Lake. So Bull Lake is definitely not a quiet place during the day if you want to backpack there. So we packed up ourselves in a little day packs, our fishing poles, and we headed around counterclockwise around the loop. So we went to Long Lake first, which is a really stunning lake, and I would camp there if I could in the future. It's really, really pretty. Long, super long, skinny lake, and lots of fishing. So the guys were fishing at several different spots, caught many different fish. All brookies, I think there, maybe one rainbow over by the rocks that we caught, and they were having a good time. I didn't have a fishing pole, so I was just kind of hanging out, taking pictures, just enjoying a slow afternoon in the mountains. And we were probably there for a couple hours before I took off, and I went up to I'm going to call it Rawu Lake. It's Rawau, so Rawu, however you want to say it. It's a kind of a right towards the end of Long Lake before you go up the Bishop Pass area. It takes off and goes up the mountain up behind Chocolate Peak, and it's a mule trail. It's one of the hardest parts of the whole hike, but you get up there. It's pretty short. It's less than a mile, and then you get to this big round snow-fed glacier lake. Basically, there's no rivers pouring in, no other lakes pouring through. This is the high point. It's just about 11,000 feet at this lake level, and super pretty, super peaceful. I had the whole lake to myself for about an hour. When swimming, it was cold. I'm talking take your breath away cold. I swim in a lot of lakes, and usually I'll get that first instance and I'll stay in for a while. I did not stay in a while for this water. This was cold water. I don't know. It just hit me. It was like, oh, I'm here by myself. I need to get out of this stuff. So I got out of the lake and just sat on the shoreline for a while until the guys showed up with their fishing poles. They fished there for a good hour and a half as well. Met a local guy there. I think his name was Matt, out of Bishop, who rock climbs and hikes all over the place for golden trout. He'd been up and up all over the peaks. He was telling us about different peaks names. I thought one of them was called Cloud Ripper, but I guess Cloud Ripper you couldn't see, and we were looking at these other peaks. So he had all this local knowledge, sat and talked to me for like an hour and a half. It was great. I love meeting locals or people who have knowledge of the local area on the trail who love to talk about it, right? There's people who don't like to share stuff. And of course, I like to share everything. So he was awesome. He was talking about, the Bishop Pass area and several different canyons where he goes and gets golden trout. And I won't share those. He didn't give them to me to share. He was just kind of talking about a lot of the things he did. And it was interesting. He was kind of, a little bit, I'd say he's probably about 10 years younger than I was, and already talking about midlife crisis and slowing down. And I'm going, oh, you just wait. Things start slowing you down. Because here's what the intention was for me today, right? So I'll be 55 this year. And my intent was to get to Rawu Lake, sit there, and then go hike up Chocolate Peak, which I understand is about 900 feet. Wasn't supposed to be that bad. But at 11,000 feet, my lungs were going, no, you're tired, man. I'm done. So even though this is an easy backpacking trip, very short distance, I knew myself going, yeah, I don't need peaks. Well, I don't crave peaks, right? You guys know that about me. But I just said, I'm not doing Chocolate Peak. I can see from here, and I'm good. So I did check that one off my bucket list of things to get done. And some people might be going, oh, you should have done it. Well worth a view, I'm sure. But just didn't feel it, man. Sometimes you just don't feel it. And so we sat around for a little while, and then we continue to loop. And when you leave Rawu Lake, if you do this loop, it is quite a little climb to the bench, right? There's a little bench that you have to get to. It takes you well over 11,000 feet at that point. And that bench, there's a bunch of trails, kind of stay left. You'll continue climbing. It'll take you like you feel like you're going to go to the peak. It's the trail does not go directly to the bench. It kind of climbs up Chocolate Peak until it gets to a certain point, and then it's trying to carry you over the top. So understood it once I got back there, but it was a little confusing at first. But once we got to the bench and saw over the Chocolate Lakes and saw get the trail going down to the upper Chocolate Lake, that is where people usually, have a little bit of a hard time on this trail. Either way, it's a pretty steep decline or incline if you come the other direction, and it's not a well-built trail. It's a human use trail. So there's all kinds of areas where it's just dirt, like people have slid down the mountain and you're trying to make a trail out of it. It's a wilderness area. You're in John Muir Wilderness, so they're probably not going to come out there and build a new trail. But I would honestly say coming down from there is actually quite unsafe. It was they're probably better off to hop off on the rocks and find my own way. But we made it down without falling. It was just a little tricky. Upper Chocolate Lake is my favorite of the Chocolate Lakes. It was a nice big lake. We did some fishing there. It's got a beautiful view right below the granite cliffs, and it's definitely, of all the 3 Chocolate Lakes, that's the one to be at. There's no camping there. There's no space for camping. It is strictly straight walls out of the water, and a trail that kind of walks along the wall there. So, but we did find fishing down on the, I guess it would be the north side of the lake. I think it faces kind of north-south. And went fishing there along the banks before heading down. The middle and the lower Chocolate Lakes, both okay lakes. I mean, the scenic beauty of this canyon is awesome, right? It's a pretty awesome little canyon to be in, but the lake water themselves were murky. They kind of had this little green foam that were floating there in the bottom. I wouldn't swim in them. I would have swam in the upper one, but I wouldn't swim in the other 2. They just don't look all that healthy. There was plenty of fish. Guys fished and caught fish or fish jumping. So if you're a fisherman, this loop is for you. They were fly fishing, throwing jigs in, throwing little spinners in, and catching fish. They're little teeny fish, or 8 inches probably is a big fish along the shoreline, but they're catching lots of them. I think Brian, the guy with our leader group, caught 14 fish on that loop, so he was having a ball and just having a good day. So good loop. Anyways, go on down the loop to get the last one, and then it drops back down to Bull Lake, where we were able to spend the night again. I had to get up early the next morning and be back in cell phone range for work. So I got up at 5 a.m., basically 4:45. Left camp about 5:30 a.m. before the sun really started hitting the peaks. Beautiful morning, calm. Got scared by a huge rabbit that popped out, and then these 3 quail. We're going down the granite area, and you ever been in the wilderness by yourself? Sometimes things are spooky, right? But came around this corner, this huge old quail about the size of a basketball pops up out of the rocks. A couple steps later, here comes a littler one, and then another one, and a third one in that same group. So they got my blood, pumping a little bit, but made it back down to South Lake in less than an hour, just in time for sunrise. Got this beautiful sunrise picture of South Lake, which, by the way, is a beautiful lake. I really like South Lake. I can see why people love being down there for boating and recreation, day use and stuff. South Lake's a gorgeous lake. It was plumb full, where Sabrina was already low. South Lake was full and gorgeous. It's got a great setting. So I can imagine that whole canyon during the fall, when the fall colors are booming. That area's big fall color area. So highly recommended if you're looking for a getaway backpacking trip. I would consider this a beginner's backpacking trip, even though the elevation at 10,000 feet probably is a little much for some people. It's short enough. It's got beautiful lakes with lots of opportunity for day use. There are multiple lakes further up the Bishop Pass. If we went past Long Lake, there's another lake basin right above there that I'll catch next time before you get to Bishop Pass. And elevation is really the only thing that you're challenged with on that loop. A lot of people will go down to, I think it's called Treasure Islands on this path beforehand, so you can split off. There's another opportunity up there, and then there's obviously opportunities at Lake Sabrina, North Lake as well. A lot of people do the loop. They do North Lake to South Lake as a loop, hit the JMT. And that would be the last thing I'd share with you on this podcast today, is that we saw probably, I'd say, 8 to 9 different people come off the JMT that were exiting on this Bishop Pass loop that had injured feet or injured body parts that had started different spots. Some people were going northbound. Some people were coming southbound, going to Whitney. They all had different reasons for getting off. And it was really kind of interesting. This is the psychology of backpacking, right? They were a little downtrodden and looked a little beaten when you met them. But I like to talk to people and pet. So I go, hey, I hope you saw some amazing things on your experience. As soon as I said that, they would all lighten up and go, man, it was the best thing I've ever done. They couldn't wait to get back. So the pain like would leave their feet for just a second and go, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to leave here defeated. I just conquered. Fit some of these people on the trail for 30 miles, 20 miles, whatever it is. They conquered the part of their dream. And although they weren't hitting their goals, they can come back and finish those and be healthy. So the one person I spoke to had come from Tuolumne area, and she just said it was by far the most beautiful part of the world that she'd ever seen. And so she goes, it was up and down, it was hard, but some of the things that she saw were, some of her favorites. So I'll leave that with you. The John Muir Wilderness was a fun first experience for me. I haven't backpacked in the John Muir yet, and that was my first foray, if you will, into the wilderness area down there. I look forward to going back. I'll definitely do that pass again because those other lakes look really intriguing to me. And then I'll probably start looking at some different routes down there. But we thank you for being with us today. We thank you for joining us at the podcast. We hope that you'll join us again in a future podcast. That we moved it to Thursdays here recently, so this is our Thursday show. And wherever you're at today, I hope to see ours in your future. Come see us for Hot Dogs Nights. Leave your comments and likes and everything down below. We'd love to have you, especially on YouTube. If you're with YouTube, subscribe. We'd love to get to 1,000 followers this month or this year. And then catch us. We'll have our Fall Hikers and Fishers Guide coming out in September at Sierra Magazine. And we do hope you'll join us for that. Free subscriptions. If you just DM me, I'll send you a free subscription link. Just shoot me back a DM and I'll get you a 1 year free subscription. All right. Have a great day, guys. And God bless wherever you're at.